Welcome back, lords and ladies, to another Stories with Lord Duffield. Good to have you all here. Today I'll be reading a story from Norse mythology entitled Thor and Hrungnir. I do apologise for any mispronunciations. I am not fluent in Nordic, so I may get some words wrong, but hopefully you will all enjoy this story. Let's begin. Thor and Hrungnir. Odin himself was once dashing through the air on his 8-footed steed Sleipnir, when he attracted the attention of the giant Hrungnir, who proposed a race, declaring that Gulfaxi, his steed, could rival Sleipnir in speed. In the heat of the race, Hrungnir did not notice the direction in which they were going, until, in the vain hope of overtaking Odin, he urged his steed to the very gates of Valhalla. Discovering then where he was, the giant grew pale with fear, for he knew he had jeopardized his life by venturing into the stronghold of the gods, his hereditary foes. The Aesir, however, were too honourable to take even an enemy at a disadvantage, and instead of doing him harm, they asked him into their banquet halls, where he proceeded to indulge in liberal potations of the heavenly mead set before him. He soon grew so excited that he began to boast of his power, declaring he would come some day and take possession of Asgard, which he would destroy, together with the gods, save only Freya and Sif, upon whom he gazed with an admiring leer. The gods, knowing he was not responsible, let him talk unmolested. But Thor, coming home just then from one of his journeys, and hearing his threat to carry away the beloved Sif, flew into a terrible rage. He furiously brandished his hammer, with intent to annihilate the boaster. This the gods would not permit, however, and they quickly threw themselves between the irate thunderer and their guest, imploring Thor to respect the sacred rites of his hospitality, and not to desecrate their peace stead by shedding blood. Thor was at last induced to bridle his wrath, but he demanded that Hrungnir should appoint a time and place for Holmgang, as a northern duel was generally called. Thus challenged, Hrungnir promised to meet Thor at Greutengard and confine the confines of his realm 3 days later, and departed somewhat sobered by the fright he had experienced. When his fellow giants heard how rash he had been, they chided him sorely, but they took counsel together in order to make the best of a bad situation. Hrungnir told them that he was to have the privilege of being accompanied by a squire, whom Thialfi would engage in fight. Wherefore they proceeded to construct a creature of clay, 9 miles long and proportionately wide, whom they called Mokakilfi, the Mist Warder. As they could find no human heart big enough to put in the monster's breast, they secured that of a mare, which however kept fluttering and quivering with apprehension. The day of the duel arrived. Hrungnir and his squire were on the ground, awaiting the arrival of their respective opponents. The giant had not only a flint heart and skull, but also a shield and club of the same substance, and therefore deemed himself well nigh invincible. Thialfi came before his master, and soon after there was a terrible rumbling and shaking which made the giant apprehensive that his enemy would come up through the ground and attack him from underneath. He therefore followed a hint from Thialfi and stood upon his shield. A moment later, however, he saw his mistake, for while Thialfi attacked Mokkakjalfi with a spade, Thor came with a rush upon the scene and flung his hammer full at his opponent's head. Hrungnir, to ward off the blow, interposed his stone club, which was shivered into pieces that flew all over the earth, supplying all the flint stones thereafter to be found. And one fragment sank deep into Thor's forehead. As the god dropped fainting to the ground, his hammer crashed against the head of Hrungnir, who fell dead beside him, in such a position that one of his ponderous legs was thrown over the recumbent god. Thialfi, who, in the meanwhile, had disposed of the great clay giant with its cowardly mare's heart, now rushed to his master's assistance. But his efforts were unavailing, nor could the other gods, whom he quickly summoned, raise the pinioning leg. While they were standing there, helplessly wondering what they would do next, Thor's little son Magni came up. According to varying accounts, he was then only 3 days or 3 years old. But he quickly seized the giant's foot and unaided set his father free, declaring that had he only summoned sooner, he would easily have disposed of both giants and squire. The exhibition of strength made the gods marvel greatly, and helped them to recognize the truth of the various predictions, which one and all declared that their descendants would be mightier than they, would survive them, and would rule in their turn over the new heaven and earth. To reward his son for his timely aid, Thor gave him the steed Gullfaxi, the golden mane, to which he had fallen heir by right of conquest, and Magni ever after rode this marvellous horse, which almost equalled the renowned Sleipnir in speed and endurance. Well, I hope you liked that little story. So, got to learn about Thor's son and some of the other gods and giants. I think I might read a few more of these tales, written or composed here in my book, Tales of Norse Mythology. Plan on doing a bit of a compilation, so we have that to look forward to coming up in the next few days, and I hope to see you all there. Thank you for joining me, and until next time.